gangsters, 'cause we speak bold, ain't tripping on the haters. It could take freedom from a cold dead hands, locked and loaded for the last dance. 'Cause we're the new American gangsters, ready to die for this man.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Brian Blim is not in studio with us today. He is actually out and about, but I think he's going to join us remotely on the last half of the episode. But joining me today is producer Steve. He's going to join us from in here in the studio. So we talk a lot about bureaucrats and the role that they play in our government, along with the deep state and the corruption and the Russia hoax. And today we've got a little bit of a different show for you. But before we get started, Steve, what do you think of the Durham Annex?
Interesting stuff. Honestly, I just think it's cool that we're finally hearing confirmation from what we already knew anyway.
Right. Well, we've been talking about that for months, right? We've been talking about the fact that this whole Russia thing was orchestrated to impact the election, and then it was perpetrated to kind of hide their election crimes. And I love that that stuff is all coming to light. But the Durham Annex is interesting because it implicates people we knew were involved, right? Loretta Lynch, Barack Obama, the Clintons, her campaign, the FBI, the CIA. We have some clips here today that we can show. So do you want to put up number one? Let's put up that first image. So if you have not read the Durham Annex, I encourage you to go online, pull that PDF. It's, I believe, like 26 pages long, but it is quite the entertaining read. In this one, go ahead,
Steve.
Steve.
Let me back out, and I'm going to bring it up so that we can zoom into it, okay?
All right. Sounds good. So there was this big push with the Clinton campaign that they would perpetrate this Putin-Trump alliance and this whole Russia gate hoax in 2015 leading up to the election, in order to cover up for the Hillary Clinton email situation. And I find it very interesting that these emails, these DNC emails that leaked, actually go into more detail in the report, different things that we had read. So this part is quite interesting. It says, based upon information from Wasserman Schultz, the FBI does not possess any kind of direct evidence against Clinton because of their timely deletion from the email servers. It also goes on to say that Amanda Renteria regularly receives information from the Attorney General Loretta Lynch on plans and intentions of the FBI. Now, Steve, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think the FBI would brief you on their investigation of you if you were under investigation?
Yeah, probably not. I think they would gather evidence to the point where they brought you in for questioning, but I just think that this is just interesting. It's funny. I mean, as soon as you feel like you've got a grasp of how bad things can be, how corrupt our government can possibly be, you find something that just proves you're wrong, and you realize it can be so much worse.
It's always worse. Not shocking, but it gets worse for sure. You know, one of the other things, and I don't have a slide for that, that was in the report is in one of the emails, it says Barack Obama sanctioned the use of all administrative levers to remove possibly negative effects from the FBI investigation of the cases related to the Clinton Foundation and the email correspondence in the State Department. So it clearly shows that what Tulsi Gabbard is investigating and what she has claimed there is real credible evidence that Barack Obama and all of these players were literally involved in using our intelligence agencies to propagate their agenda. In addition, they talk about using the FBI to kind of move their campaign agenda. If you want to put up number 2, Steve, it talks about the use of the FBI attic-based processes to get things to the media. So it says during the first stage of the campaign, and this is the campaign operative speaking, due to lack of direct evidence, it was decided to disseminate the necessary information through the FBI-affiliated attic-based technical structures that are involved in cybersecurity. In particular, and I love this, the CrowdStrike and Threat Connect companies, from where the information would then be disseminated through leading U.S. publications. So they were going to use the infrastructure, the cyber infrastructure of our intelligence organization, of the FBI, to disseminate information to local media. And then it also talks about it's presumed that the FBI in the future will help kind of shore up their story and lead credibility to that. It's everything we've been talking about. It's a tinfoil hat's wet dream, right? Because we're sitting here looking at this saying everybody said we were crazy, everybody thinks we're crazy, but this actually was happening.
It's funny you put it that way, but is 100% true, right? A tinfoil hat wearer's wet dream come true. That's like the people wearing tinfoil hats, their score is raising quite a bit, right? Like It's almost like Alex Jones, like, oh my God, he was right again.
Well, one of my
what the heck
favorite
is going on here?
One of my favorite memes is that meme that says something like, all of my conspiracy theories have come true, so I'm going to need another one.
Yeah.
So it's pretty crazy. And then there were the Leo Bernardo emails. I don't know if you got a chance, how much you got to look at those, Steve, but if you put up number 3, Leo Bernardo's email, this is quite interesting as well, because he goes on to say that Julie says it will be a long-term affair to demonize Putin and Trump. Now it is good for a post-convention bounce. So they're talking about the DNC convention. If they can get enough propaganda out about Putin and Trump, then they'll get a nice bounce coming out of their DNC convention. But the next sentence is the most profound. It says, later, the FBI will put more oil into the fire. Outcome is far from clear as Americans are more keen on their own woes, and Hillary is hardly good looking as far as credibility is concerned. Anyway, things are ghastly for U.S.-Russian relations. So they're talking out their strategy here and how they're going to get Hillary elected, even though she is an uncredible, bad candidate, by simply demonizing Putin and using the FBI to do it.
Incredibly uncredible bad candidate.
Right. And I love the way he uses the term good looking, because when I first read it, I'm like, wow, well, that's, I'm offended for Hillary Clinton. I'm like, okay, I know what you mean. Not good looking credibility wise. What was more interesting, I think, and it ties into everything we've been talking about for the last several months, was the next segment that I pulled out. And that's about the other agencies, slide 4, out of this report. So they talked a lot about using the FBI, right? But this was interesting. It says, I suggest doing something about a task from someone, I don't know, some dark forces like the FBI, for instance, or better yet, Clinton sympathizers in IC, Pentagon, Deep State, or somewhere else about American websites deploying a campaign to demonize the actions of Russian screw acting in accordance to the VVP, or Vladimir Putin. So they literally call this deep state, dark forces that are Hillary Clinton sympathizers and the forces of good in the elections in the interest of Donald Trump, who is basically an agent of influence. So they're going to use the intelligence apparatus to push forward this narrative of the Russiagate scandal. And they continue this, they're still talking about Russiagate, right? I mean, when's the last time you heard that?
If you look at the last sentence on the end of this, it says, and so on. Will that be okay?
Would it be okay if the CIA, the Pentagon, the NSA,
and Russia
and the FBI, yeah. Now remember, we talked about this. One of the mayors here in Arizona said this is not Russians in a basement in their underwear. Just so everybody's clear. There is no room that exists of a bunch of Russians in their underwear trying to get Trump elected. So I think the final thing, for those of you that are local, and even if you're not local, how many people remember the infamous visit by Loretta Lynch on the tarmac here in Phoenix, Arizona, where it got leaked that she was meeting with Bill Clinton in an airplane. So she lands on the tarmac. Bill Clinton enters the airplane. They have a meeting in the airplane on the tarmac, and then he leaves. And that information got leaked, and everybody said, oh, they're colluding to bury Hillary Clinton's emails, right? And the intelligence community came back and said, no, we have no credible evidence of that. Do you remember that, Steve? Do you remember the tarmac? Okay, so
our Arizona tarmac gets used for several weird little meetings, apparently. You remember back to Barack Obama meeting with our governor back in the day?
Oh, yeah. It's
wagging the finger.
I think it's Denver and is it Dallas are like two of the big airport hubs, but Phoenix, Arizona is where all the good corruption occurs at the tarmacs. There's a lot of crazy stuff. I think if you're an investigative journalist, you should spend some time hanging out around some of these independent hangars and see who you see coming and going. But when all of this got leaked to the intelligence agencies, they found out that Loretta Lynch had been briefing the campaign about the FBI investigation and other information. So they decided to brief Loretta Lynch to notice her that this information had come out. And so when they did, the FBI agents that actually met with her made a statement that they were disturbed by her response and her ability, even though she claimed to not know who this person was, her ability to very properly pronounce it. Can you pull that up, Steve? Number 5.
Number 5, okay.
Yeah, this is the Lynch reaction. So she claimed that she was never briefed on the email exchange, and she didn't recall any of that. But what's interesting is McCabe added that he thought the Attorney General's reaction to the substance of the reports was odd. Anderson similarly told the OIG that she found it a little bit weird that the Attorney General did not affirmatively disavow the contents of the reports, and that she, Anderson, and McCabe had discussed the circumspect nature of her response. In an interview with The Office, Anderson described Attorney General Lynch as being a little surprised at what she had read. Anderson described Attorney Lynch as being a little surprised. Okay, Anderson also stated that she was struck by the fact that the Attorney General pronounced the name Renteria, the Clinton campaign official, in a particular fashion. Anderson recalled telling McCabe on the walk back to the FBI headquarters that the Attorney General's response was odd, and Anderson based this assessment on the fact that the Attorney General did not seem visibly outraged, nor did she denounce or object to the contents of the reports. So, moving on, essentially, they write all this stuff and they say, well, she acted really odd and we have all these email exchanges, but we really don't have any evidence to launch a full investigation into the attorney general, so we're just going to call it a day. And they closed everything out. Is that pretty much business as usual in government, Steve?
It seems like it is. Yep.
So what we really want to talk about today is the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
So, this doesn't just affect Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, just so you know. This is actually multiple states across the United States. But just to give you some background on what we're going to be talking about today, excuse me, in 2007, the ACLU filed a lawsuit on behalf of Manuel Melendres, claiming civil rights violations. In 2013, District Judge G. Murray Snow issued a ruling finding that Maricopa County had engaged in racial profiling, and the court ruled that the agency policies and practices were intentional and systematically violated the rights of Latino drivers and passengers. So a little bit of some of what they're referring to is they did a process analysis and they compared like traffic stops with Anglos versus Latinos and said, okay,
so real quick, let's give some
seconds
context.
different,
So
right?
this was in what, 2007?
Right. This was under
Okay,
Joe
this was
Arpaio.
under Joe Arpaio. That's right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. This was under Joe Arpaio. That's absolutely
Okay.
correct. And so the lawsuit went forward, and the DOJ ended up filing in on the case and also claiming civil rights violations. The judge ultimately ruled and issued an injunction stating that they needed to do new training programs focused on bias-free policies, focusing on constitutional standards. They needed body cams on all of the police officers and comprehensive data collection for every single traffic stop. So understand now, every stop that a sheriff makes, every traffic stop, now requires an additional layer of forms to be filled out.
Just honestly, all police officers, whether they're civil police, sheriff, whatever the case may be, they should be wearing body cameras anyway to record all of their interactions, not just for the citizens' protections, but also for their own protections to protect them from frivolous allegations, right?
Right,
So
absolutely.
that should be done regardless, and I'm
Yeah.
glad that at least happened.
I mean, we do see a lot of cases where there are officers violating constitutional rights, and we definitely don't want to condone that in any way, shape, or form.
No, absolutely not.
But what's interesting, I find this interesting, almost kind of like an oxymoron, is they say you cannot racially profile people when you pull them over for a traffic stop. However, you must gather data on the perceived race of the person you're pulling over. And I'm like, hold on, what, are we living in bizarre land? So I'm supposed to be colorblind during the traffic stop, but yet I must document what I think your race is at the same time as I'm not profiling you for any reason. So I find that very interesting. But the most important thing they did was they decided that an independent monitor should be appointed to assess MCSO's progress and report to the court their compliance with these constitutional violations or these perceived biases in stops. And so Judge Snow ruled that an independent monitor would be put in place to oversee the sheriff's department. This was in 2013. So we are 12 years, over a decade forward. We've gone through 4 sheriffs. So we had Arpaio, where all of this took place. Then we had another interim sheriff. And then we had Penzone, who was a Democrat. And then now we have Jerry Sheridan. So 12 years, 4 more sheriffs, and we're still under this monitoring. So put up slide 6, if you would, Steve. So this is the order from Judge Snow. And I think this is really important to point out. He said the court shall appoint an independent monitor to assist with the implementation of, right? An independent monitor. It does go on to say that both parties will have the opportunity to interview the prospective candidates, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, Steve, can you go ahead and put up number 7? So this came off the ACLU website. And the ACLU is bragging on their website about how the monitor that was appointed was actually selected by and recommended by the ACLU. And that's slide 7, Steve. So right here, it says under monitoring team. So this is right off the ACLU website. Chief Warshaw, a former chief of police in Rochester, New York, who had significant experience as a judicially appointed monitor of law enforcement agencies, was nominated for the position by the ACLU. So does that feel like an independent monitor to you when the ACLU, the party who is financially benefiting from this, is actually the one that gets to select the monitor? So we decided to do some digging into Warshaw and Associates. Who is Robert Warshaw and where did he come from? Right? So the interesting thing about Robert Warshaw is when he was the chief of police under Rochester, New York, Bill Clinton and the Clinton administration actually came in and gave him an appointment. So, Steve, can you put up number 9?
We're going to skip 8.
Yeah, we'll go back to 8. I have these out of order. So number 9 is the appointment by the Clinton administration.
Ooh, that's hard to read.
So they talk about Robert Warshaw here and his career of leadership and civilian enforcement. And so they tapped him and brought him into the White House administration, into the Office of National Drug Control Policy. So he was brought in as a director, says the associate director for the Bureau of State and Local Affairs as a principal advisor. So here's what's interesting. When Robert Warshaw was the chief of police, his first in command, so the guy right underneath him, his lead deputy underneath him was Robert Duffy. Okay. Robert Duffy took over as the police chief when Warshaw went to work for the Clinton administration. But then shortly after that, Governor Cuomo taps him to be his lieutenant governor. So he runs on a ticket with Cuomo in 2011 to become the lieutenant governor. And during that time, Cuomo has to appoint a monitor for local law enforcement. That is where Warshaw comes in. So Duffy, who worked closely underneath Warshaw, ends up becoming the lieutenant governor and tapping his former boss, Robert Warshaw, to be the court-appointed monitor for the Rochester police. Steve, can you put up number 8? So this is kind of the breakdown. It said, well, the city could have chosen any number of police monitoring firms, and it is a fact there were lower price firms available. Cuomo gave the word that his team would make the selection, and Dister accepted that mandate. So Robert Warshaw from Warshaw and Associates took the contract under appointment of Governor Andrew Cuomo. Now, here's where it kind of gets crazy and dicey. So Andrew Cuomo ended up resigning in shame, for those of you that don't know, and you can pull that down, Steve. because he had multiple allegations of sexual harassment come forward, along with other allegations of corruption. But I think there were over 11 women that came forward that said that they were harassed or violated by Andrew Cuomo between 2013 and 2020. And Cuomo actually resigned during an impeachment hearing. They were actually going to impeach him, and he resigned. Okay, so Robert Duffy, again, second in command or first in command underneath Warshaw, becomes lieutenant governor, gets Warshaw this contract. So let's talk about Robert Duffy. So let's put up number 10. Robert Duffy was the lieutenant governor, but he started out working under Warshaw at the Rochester Police Department. Okay. During that time, he also was a manager. He was a city manager. He was the police chief once Warshaw left to go to work for the Clinton administration. So he had a lot of authority then. So we talk about Cuomo and his sexual harassment, but what about Warshaw? So interestingly enough, his buddy, who he appointed into oversight for Niagara Falls, also has allegations of sexual harassment. Can you put up number 11? So this is Robert Warshaw. This is the former police chief who is monitoring multiple cities in the United States. He was wrapped up in a sex scandal as well. Now, the judge who appointed him as the monitor was the one that got to hear the sexual harassment case, and he dismissed it as, nothing there. There's nothing there. Would you say that's some kind of conflict of interest, Steve?
Nothing to see here. Move along.
I mean, if I'm going to appoint somebody,
Don't look at the burning dumpster behind me.
right? So you're going to appoint somebody, and then you're going to come back and say, "Oh, I appointed, a fraternizer and a sexual harasser."
The fact that he appointed him should have kept him from having anything to do with this, deciding anything about this. He should have recused himself from this. Some other judge who didn't appoint him to a position should have overseen this.
But there's so much corruption tied to Warshaw. We're still trying to uncover it, right?
It's insane. It's like this never-ending cesspool that you could just dive in and keep swimming through it for days.
Yeah, I mean, you could totally get lost in the bunny trails, but he comes from kind of this cesspool of corruption. Go ahead and pull that down, Steve, and put up number 12. So let's talk about Donald Warshaw. So Donald Warshaw is Robert Warshaw's brother. He was the chief of police in Miami. So he was the Miami police chief. He got indicted and pled guilty to embezzling money from a nonprofit designed for police officers. So he started out as the city manager. He was the city manager. Then he became the police chief. And he pled guilty to stealing from a nonprofit designed to help police officers. So police officer fund. And some people would say, well, but that's his brother. He can't be held accountable for what his brother does. So what happened under the administration of Donald Warshaw that gets a little dicey when it comes to Robert, right? Let's go ahead and put up number 13. So again, in September of 2000, a federal grand jury indicted his brother, Donald Warshaw, former Miami police chief and city manager, on charges of conspiracy to commit fraud and mail fraud. Okay, he had taken money from nonprofits And it was a year-long investigation. He pled guilty. He resigned, but he was taking the police relief and pension fund for Miami police in putting the money into his personal accounts for 6 years. So what else did Donald Warshaw do during his tenure as the Miami police chief? Well, he got to make additional appointments as well. So let's go to Exhibit 14. So Exhibit 14 is actually an exhibit from the application from Maricopa
hold on.
County.
Before we go
Yeah.
to the next one, I'm just reading ahead here. It wasn't just the police fund. He was accused of using corporate American Express cards of the pension fund of Do the Right Thing of Miami Incorporated, a charitable organization that helps disadvantaged youth for his own benefit. He used their credit cards. The charity was funded in part by law enforcement. So this is, now he's screwing law enforcement from the other way around.
See,
right?
I missed
So law
this.
enforcement is funding this charity for the youth to help kids in need.
Did you see
And-
this $86,000 spent
Yeah, and
on
he's
that
just
credit card
burning
for
through their money on a corporate credit card, spending it for his personal use. So I saw that. That's disgusting.
Wow, no, I actually missed that part. So this next exhibit we're going to put up, this
Which
is
number was it?
14.
14.
This is an actual exhibit that was attached to the application to the court for Warshaw to be appointed the monitor for the Maricopa County Sheriff's Department. And he lists the people who are independent contractors of the monitoring. So this is Exhibit C. It says Chief Robert Warshaw's team will include the following individuals. So let's just focus in on number 1 for now, although we are doing some looking into some of these other players, and we'll follow up with you as we have more information. But Chief Raul Martinez. So what is interesting about Chief Raul Martinez is he actually worked for Donald Warshaw in the Miami Police Department, Robert Warshaw's brother. So this is where the brother's credibility really should come into play and does come into play because they're obviously working together. So if you put up number 15, Steve.
So that's the answer to, well, yeah, his brother's a bad guy, but you can't hold that against him. Well, typically, no, you can't. But when he is utilizing people that was working for his corrupt brother, now
Right.
that does bring that into being a part of the equation.
Well, they're clearly in business together to some regard, right? So if you look at 15, this is Raul Martinez. He gets appointed to the Miami Chief of Police by Warshaw. So Martinez was appointed chief by embattled city manager Donald Warshaw. Okay, so this is clearly Warshaw is working for his brother, Robert Warshaw, and he's also the chief of police in Miami under Donald Warshaw's leadership as the city manager. So what's wrong with Chief Raul Martinez? Well, let's take a look, Steve, if you can put up number 16. So one of the wonderful, credible employees of Robert Warshaw, the current monitor for Maricopa County Sheriff's Department, was actually investigated for destroying evidence against drug smugglers, sharing bribes, and skimming cash and drugs from seizures, according to the FBI documents obtained by the Herald.
Wow.
So Martinez, who served as a Miami police officer for 24 years before retiring to become, imagine that, an assistant city manager. Who's the city manager again? Donald Warshaw, said Friday the allegations against him were concocted by a drug dealer who helped convict. He helped convict, and that he was told specifically by FBI agents who were interviewing him at the time that he was not a target. So he claimed during his appointment that he got a clean bill of health from the FBI, but the FBI actually issued a statement that failure to indict is not the same as a clean bill of health. So the FBI never came out and said that Raul Martinez was innocent. They only refused to press charges. And if you look into this case further, it appears that Martinez actually testified against other police officers. But during the interview, he invoked his Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination in front of the grand jury. So he was indicted and he pled his Fifth Amendment rights. He refused to answer questions about these allegations of, I don't know, destroying evidence, freeing drug smugglers, stealing drugs, all those great things that any good cop.
Yeah, just fun things,
I'm pretty sure most good cops get wrapped up in
Things
those
that
kind of things.
you would like to believe only exist on TV shows. Unfortunately, those stories on TV come from somewhere, right?
Well, absolutely. And apparently they are very prominent in New York and Miami. It's interesting. And for those of you that aren't in Maricopa County and don't really know what's going on, I want you to know that this agency, Warshaw and Associates, LLC, has gotten contracts in Oakland, Maricopa County, Detroit, Albuquerque, Niagara Falls, Louisville, Kentucky, New Jersey, Pittsburgh, and even Puerto Rico. With that first contract making him an official government contractor was by appointment of corrupt Democrat Governor Andrew Cuomo. And what is this costing taxpayers, Steve?
Let's find out. Let's bring up the next slide, huh? And this is just for one county, just
Right.
for one out of the many cities that this is happening in.
So Maricopa County taxpayers to date have spent $353 million on this supervision. And this was reported by Grassroots 50, but we also have gotten confirmation from boards of supervisors by attending the meeting, and also other people that are kind of in the know. But Thomas Galvin, one of the board of supervisors for Maricopa County, and Debbie Lesko both spoke at the last community hearing, and they echoed that it has cost over $353 million.
Shelby, I feel like I remember you asking this gentleman how much he gets paid and how much he pays his staff. And what was his response to you?
Well, so I actually didn't ask that question.
Okay,
I asked
what
a
was the
different
question
one.
you asked?
Somebody did ask that question, though, and his exact response was, I am not obligated to tell the public that information.
That sounds reminiscent of pleading the fifth. And that wasn't even a court trial.
No, and what's interesting about that, Steve, is it's more than just pleading the fifth. It's him being Runbeck. It's him being Dominion. It's him being all these other bureaucrats and private contractors that do not believe that they are subject to public scrutiny. They can go in and they can spend our tax dollars however they want. They can do whatever they want on behest of the taxpayer, but they don't have to answer to us or report to us. And this is the overarching issue we deal with in the government, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Most people think that the Revolutionary War was because of taxation without representation, and that is not the complete answer, but it definitely was a part of the equation. And I can't help but feel that when we have government contractors who are not elected officials, they're appointed, their money they're being paid off of taxpayers' backs, and they're being funded off the taxpayers, but they're not directly responsible to answer to us. That this to me feels like taxation without representation. Like our taxes are being spent on things that we cannot oversee, that do not have to answer to us. And I don't like that.
Well, and the question also becomes,
Not just that, but they can be weaponized against us.
well, so the order that demands that we pay this bill came from the judicial branch, right? So we're looking at Judge Snow. So you're right. It's not only is it taxation without representation, it's also, to me, a lack of separation of powers. We've got the judiciary system making a decision in regards to a constitutional office, right? The sheriff's department is an elected representative of the people, and the court is requiring our tax dollars be spent this way. And it was funny because you're right. I did ask a question, Steve. And the question I asked him was, isn't it true that Judge Snow sealed many of the court documents that disclose how the finances are being spent and distributed? He denied any knowledge of that. I don't believe him. When you looked at the look on his face,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
when I had my opportunity to get to the mic, they actually shut the mic down and they said, we're not taking any more comments. So I
Yeah.
had to yell that very loudly because they did not want to give me the microphone to ask that question. But it is true. Judge Snow has put a court order seal on many of the documents. And when he was questioned about the amount of money he was spending, he claimed that a lot of the expenses that are being claimed are maybe not fair because they don't really go to the monitoring agency, their normal operational expenses. But I want to show you a couple of old invoices before the court sealed those invoices so you can see what this man is charging
Before you
per
have me
month.
put those up, I just want to let you know Brian's actually waiting in the queue.
Oh, okay.
So let's show this slide and then let's bring Brian on, okay?
Okay, yeah, let's look at
All right.
18 first. So 18 is an old invoice from Warshaw and Associates to Maricopa County.
Little fuzzy.
This is 1 month, a 30-day invoice.
Hold on,
Three-
let me see if I can read this number real quick.
Sure.
$319,584.23. That's a 1 month invoice for
That's
Maricopa County.
So if you look car rentals, you look at the car rental costs, almost $2,000 for car rental, plus ground transportation, another $1,000. I mean, if you're renting cars, right? I mean, maybe I'm looking at this wrong. No, ground transportation, $350. Hotel, $1,000. This doesn't include the fact that we have an office building downtown that we're paying rent for this monitoring company, a full-time office space that costs nearly $100,000 a year in rent, while they're out monitoring 12 other cities. And media has reported that literally Warshaw has only been in the office once in like 2 years, but yet we're footing that bill.
This is way over $250,000 being spent in a month
Mhm.
by the taxpayers of Maricopa County for this fraud,
Right.
who has, from my recollection, actually helped to bankrupt another municipality through this fraud that he's running.
Well, yeah, and that brings me to another thing. So, Oakland Police. So the Oakland police chief, Ann Kirkpatrick. Brian, are you on? Do you want to hop in here?
He can't talk yet. I haven't brought him in, so let me see if I can pop him up here. Give me just a moment.
So while he's bringing Brian in, I'll just talk to you a little bit about this. So there was police chief Ann Kirkpatrick in Oakland. And Oakland PD is one of the cities that's subject to Warshaw. And once you get in, it's like the Hotel California. Once you get this monitor in your county or your city, good luck getting rid of the guy, right? Because if he gives you a clean bill of health to the judge, then his gravy train ends, right? So Ann Kirkpatrick she believed that there were some wrongdoings occurring on behalf of Oakland City, and she put in a request to the judge. Hey, Brian.
Say hi.
How you doing?
Hey, we can hear you.
Oh,
So
cool.
We're just wrapping up all this information about Warshaw and
No,
Associates.
keep going on Kirkpatrick. It's interesting. I want to hear what she submitted.
Okay, yeah. So go ahead and put up number 20 if you would, Steve.
We're going to skip 19.
Yeah, go ahead and skip 90. It's
Okay.
just another invoice for like $300,000 for another month.
Invoice for $300,000. Oh, good Lord.
So the average cost of this monitoring just to Warshaw and Associates, not including any other expenses, is approximately $250,000 a month. $250,000 is the average invoice per month that we're paying to this organization who monitors 12 cities, mind you. So, we're not their only account. But yeah, put up number 20. Okay, so Ann Kirkpatrick, the former chief of Oakland Police, brought retaliatory discharge and First Amendment claims against her former employee, the city of Oakland. In connection with her lawsuit, she served subpoenas on Robert Warshaw and Associates, seeking documents related to Mr. Warshaw's work as the court-appointed monitor and compliance director. The judge who appointed Warshaw denied access to the records and sealed them. So Judge Orrick, the court the motion was referred to, was also presiding over the case to appoint the monitor, another conflict of interest. So we have a sexual harassment claim where the very judge that appoints Warshaw says, no, there's nothing here, no sexual harassment. And then we have a case of retaliatory discharge and First Amendment claims brought by another police chief. And the same judge who appoints Warshaw seals the records and says, no, you cannot have access to this in discovery for your case. Go ahead and drop that down, Steve. So again, it's just, to me, a vital overreach of the bureaucracy and the judiciary. The judiciary is running cover for these bureaucrats who they're appointing into these agencies, and it's bad. It's bad. So how you doing,
Well, here's
Brian?
a question I got. I'm doing pretty damn good. Just a long drive. And the puppy here, he's just snoozing and bored of driving. But, when your daughter calls you and says, hey, let's meet in Colorado and go do a backpack trip, well, you pony up and you go. So when they become adults and they're out of town all the time, or they're living somewhere else, you take whatever chance you get to see them. So,
Cherish
yeah,
every
question
moment
for
can.
you. Yeah, question for you. How many of these cases, have you looked into them? How many of these cases were actually agreed to by the agency being monitored and the Department of Justice? Do you know?
So interestingly enough, I'm not finding that in many of these cases. There's been some discussion that Maricopa County sheriff's office entered into kind of a consent decree for this. But I was reading the court
Right.
documents, and it looks like it was ordered by Judge Snow as part of an injunction that he had entered into, and
Well-
then the parties agreed to it.
Yeah, I thought a long time ago, that and the ordering of an injunction, can be lifted. It might just be ordering something until the court could look into it further, and then have a trial on the merits, and then if you win on the merits as the jurisdiction, the injunction goes away. And so, what I think a lot of these are just that. The court will issue an emergency injunction to sort of freeze things, and then the jurisdiction, enters into an agreement, a consent decree or some type with the Department of Justice, and then boom, the court, so when they enter an agreement, the court will enter an order memorializing that agreement for continued, monitoring. But I'm not sure if that, I seem to recall that might have been what happened in Maricopa County, but I can't recall that in that detail. I don't think I was around at that time. But I did hear a lot about it when they were going after Arpaio. This has got a lot to do with Hillary Clinton too, doesn't it? Hillary Clinton, the Obama administration. And I got to
Yeah.
tell you,
So
this
this
is sort of,
lawsuit took place under the Obama administration,
Yes.
and
Right.
the guy they appointed actually worked for the Clinton administration. He was appointed by the Clinton administration into the Department of Justice.
There's an important detail here that I just realized hasn't been stated. And Brian brought up that it's interesting. We need to figure out the details of how this started, right? But I think what's more important is how does it end?
Right.
It's set up to fail. Shelby, can you
No,
explain what
I agree.
what the requirements are for this to end according to the Judge Snow's ruling?
Yeah, so they have to be in what they consider 97% or better compliance, which I believe Maricopa County Sheriff's Department has met the compliance standards. But the other part, it was a third order issued by Judge Snow, was that they had to resolve all backlogged complaints issued, civil rights complaints issued by the public. Well, the ACLU makes a lot of money off of this. They've already made well over
Oh, yeah.
$5 million. I'm hearing rumors it's more like $10 million. And so the ACLU actually has a website that they solicit out for people to issue these reports. Now, here's the interesting thing. How do you investigate anonymous claims thoroughly as a law enforcement agency?
Yeah, that's interesting.
And they are allowed to issue anonymous complaints. So a lot of these complaints, they're struggling to even move forward with because they're anonymous. Steve, go ahead and just put up 21, and then we'll wrap up there and kind of do our final thoughts. But go to 21.
Hold on a second. Brian, you okay?
Yeah, some fucking weirdo beating on my windows saying he needs to go in the store and buy 2 shots, so I apologize.
Tell him
He
he
should
should
be
go to
under
work
a-
for the bureaucrats.
Yeah, he should be under a consent decree of some type to whatever. You get a,
Can you put up 21,
Yeah.
Steve? So this
Okay.
this is what I find the most interesting is the ACLU is still providing legal counsel because this is ongoing. So they're continuing to get legal fees throughout this process in the tune of millions of dollars. And they're out soliciting complaints to keep this going. And it says here that the ACLU will keep your name, address, telephone number, and email confidential unless you give us permission to use it or unless we are ordered to turn it over by the court, although we will attempt to prevent disclosure. You can go ahead and take that down, Steve. So they're soliciting these complaints and they're out getting people to file these complaints anonymously. And they're backlogged. I think last I heard there was over 150 unaddressed complaints. And what I'm hearing is many of these are anonymous complaints that they don't even have a way to investigate. If you don't know the date, time, stopping deputy, like who stopped you, the date, time, and the name of the person, how do you investigate a claim if you don't have the
how do you
details of the
validate?
incident?
How do you even take this as a valid complaint if you can't even verify that it's legitimate?
But they are required by this order to adjudicate them, even if they are anonymous. So what has been happening historically is ACLU attorneys who are getting paid by your tax dollars and their supporters and cronies are showing up to these quarterly sheriff's meetings where they have spent several hours just berating the sheriff's department, calling them racists, and accusing them of all kinds of rights violations. They're required by the order to just sit and listen to all of this. Well, things shifted this last meeting, and about 110 people showed up, and I would say about 65 of them or more were there saying, hey, Mr. Wershaw, you need to answer for all the money you're spending in our county. We elected the sheriff. We didn't elect you. And we want you to be accountable. You're here holding our sheriff accountable. Who gets to hold you accountable? We, the citizens, want to hold you accountable. Made him very, very, very uncomfortable. He didn't want to answer questions at all about anything.
And that's funny that the people that want to hold everybody else accountable don't want to be held accountable themselves. And that's a huge part of the problem with this type of a system. This should be 100% publicly transparent. Every single penny this guy spends should be made public. Every single penny, every single thing they do, every single claim against the sheriff's department, should be, deemed a valid claim before, here's the problem though. You get into these types of a system, and under the Biden administration, they were never going to challenge the ACLU. They were never going to challenge this consent order. And so the Department of Justice can do that, and that's exactly what they need to do. Thank God the Trump administration, the Trump DOJ, shut them down before they entered a similar agreement with the Phoenix Police Department, or, these people would be making bank out of Arizona like you've never seen before. But this needs to end, and it needs to be made 100% public.
Absolutely. And I agree with the point that you just made, Brian. It's funny that their premise for this being necessary is accountability to the people, right, from the sheriff's department. But their answer for providing that accountability has no accountability to the people. It's ridiculous.
None at all.
It's hypocrisy at its finest.
I don't know if you got to hear this part. Brian, did you hear? The question was asked of Wershaw, what are you spending $250,000 a month on? How is that money being distributed to your staff? And he literally says, I'm a private contractor. I don't answer to the public, and I don't have to tell you that.
Well, who does that remind you of? Right?
Yeah.
Right. And so...
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
Right. Just because they're private, these are taxpayer funds. And every penny spent should be accounted for, every single penny. And I think you said earlier these monies are being spent in Maricopa County. No, they're not. They're paying him. And unless he lives in Maricopa County, he's spending this money everywhere else. This is exporting a hell of a lot of money out of Maricopa County every month, $300,000. And there needs to be transparency. And that's the biggest problem with government, especially under the Biden era and previously under Obama, is transparency has gone by the wayside, and we've seen that in the election related cases as well, right? And so there's a lot of similarity here. But what do? If you want to make a play for power? I mean, who do you neuter? You neuter law enforcement, right? You
Right.
neuter the people who are out there that can enforce the laws if you're making a play for power, and keep them under your thumb. And I think that's a lot of what their play against the city of Phoenix Police Department was, as well as clearly Sheriff Joe's department. 100% for sure,
I
because all of this takes place before these whack jobs hijack the election, or try to hijack the 2016 election, and then use their loss as an opportunity, to move forward with their national security state plans to hijack the 2020 election. So,
that does sound plausible, and I just think it's interesting how I think it's positioning to have power over the office, and they don't care about Republican or Democrat, because the last sheriff we had was a Democrat, and he partly quit and resigned because of this issue. And he wrote a letter expressing his concerns about it. Do you remember that, Shelby?
yeah.
Well, yeah, he actually filed a lawsuit with the Supreme Court claiming violation of separation of powers, that they were duly elected sheriffs, and that this monitoring program and them dictating their role and responsibility was a violation of separation of powers, and that they didn't have the right to continue to do what they were doing in the judiciary. And of course, that fell flat on its face. But in his resignation speech, where he said he wasn't going to run again, he cited this as a primary reason. He said, morale is down, finances are low, we can't keep staff, and this monitoring program is never going to go away, and I can't function under these conditions.
And that's if you want to destroy a law enforcement agency and its ability to enforce anything beyond murder, rape, and those basic crimes that well, I shouldn't say basic crimes, those extreme crimes, then you do just this kind of thing, and you force them into a system where they can never get out of it because they don't have the resources to get out of it, right? You would have to fire the entire department, and just maybe hire 10 people that you can babysit all the time, but then they're not out doing their job, right? They're not out enforcing laws and doing what we employ them to do. And so it's a corrupt system. It's something that I hope Donald Trump's Department of Justice jumps in and tries to terminate expeditiously, because it can't work. They've gutted Maricopa County law enforcement. So much of that will
Absolutely.
fall,
Everything
of
you
course.
just said is on point, because it was, made clear to us that they're at least 100 deputies short of being able to fulfill their constitutional obligations to this county. And I think, Shelby, you did the math at one point in time, and what we're paying these frauds every month, we could hire 50 more deputies.
For the cost that we're paying them, yes, we could hire
So
50 more deputy sheriffs.
What did you say? It was 90 days they had to go without a complaint?
No, what it has to do with is they have to clear all of the backlogged complaints, and they have to be at a 97% compliancy.
Right. Well, you know what? Here's what the sheriff ought to do. The sheriff, he should just rent an auditorium and have all of his deputies report to the auditorium for their entire shift, right? For that period of time. So nobody can fucking complain about them. right? Lock your deputies up, sheriff, in a huge, rent a big stadium, lock your deputies up every shift, and so nobody can complain about them. Take all of your people that answer 911 calls and lock them in there too, so nobody can complain about, they answered the phone wrong and called you a racist. Just shut everything down, and then you won't get any complaint. The only complaint you're going to get is you're not doing your job. You're not protecting the people of Maricopa County, which they're having a hard time doing now anyway because of this stupid order. And so, Pam Bondi needs to, stop acting like she's, role playing in a Hollywood movie and go out and start doing something about these decrees before they bankrupt taxpayers.
Well, they've already
and destroy
bankrupted a couple of cities, Brian. They bankrupt a few cities.
Right.
And I heard a rumor, and I still have to confirm this, so I'm doing research. So if anybody has insight into this, that Louisville, Kentucky finally got out from underneath their consent decree consent decree, and the monitoring program was stopped by the judge. And they had to hire a process server and legally evict Warshaw from their office because he refused to leave.
That's funny. Oh, you can't, this is my gravy trade. You can't take my gravy trade.
What's ironic about all of this is the taxpayers are paying coming and going, right? Because not only is it a waste of taxpayer money, they're also getting less of a service from the sheriff's department. And the one thing that is you can't argue with is the statistics show that when you pull municipal police or sheriffs away from a community and don't have that form of protection and enforcement, it goes to hell in a handbasket. The people pay the price for it because the criminals run rampant. The asylum people start running it. It's I forget what they're called, but the insane people start running the asylum.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that talk about, like you were saying, are anarchists. There's different forms of that. You see a lot of it on the left where they want to remove the police, and then they want to recreate the police out of the citizenry, which is dumb. It's like you already have a police in place.
And counselors.
Anyway, they want to police themselves. And they wonder why it fails every single time. It doesn't work.
We talked about the Durham Annex. Steve and I did before you came on. What do you think of that, Brian?
Well, good shit. Why the fuck was it buried so long? Why was it? What the fuck's going on, right? What the fuck's up? And so, I'm in Donald Trump, President Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, Pam Bondi. You guys need to get your asses out here to the state of Arizona. And Tulsi Gabbard, don't stop looking at what you've just found. You need to dig deep. And here's just one example, right? A guy by the name of Brian DeValance. Brian DeValance. He was in the Biden administration, right? Guess which agency? I believe it was NSA, the National Security Agency, right? This guy then, he was with Napolitano. This guy's got ties inside the Arizona judiciary. He used to work as a staffer for an Arizona, I believe it's an Arizona Supreme Court Chief Justice for a long time, maybe back in the Feldman days. I'm not sure, but this guy's got ties in the legislative branches, in the judicial branch, in the National Security Agency branch, and this guy has direct communications on behalf of the Center for Internet Security with the Arizona Judicial Branch of Government. I would hazard a guess that he's much of the reason why this disinformation task force was created by the Arizona Supreme Court in the run up to the 2020 election, right? So as a member of CIS, he's working with the CISA, the National Security Agency, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, right? He used to be an NSA guy, and now he's, like Susan Spalding, changed his outfit, right? And now instead of working for McDonald's, he's over there in a Burger King uniform, right? And he's selling the same fuel. And it's all of this Russia bullshit they're pushing down our courts' throats. But he has direct contact with our Supreme Court, our court administrators, our judicial system, just like Susan Spalding did. And so you have this guy's part of the deep state hack. Look at not Nancy Pelosi, I'm sorry, she just total whack job. But Napolitano. Now, Janet Napolitano was in the NSA in the Biden administration, right? Wasn't she the secretary?
She was Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah.
She was the secretary of
okay.
Homeland Security, and she's also States United. We talked about this, right?
No,
and also from Arizona,
so this
former governor.
This guy's deeply tied to Napolitano, right? Because he's been with Napolitano a long time. He's a leftist hack. They moved him into our judicial branch through CIS. This guy has access to all of the, what are those stupid little gateways to give them access to all the computers in Maricopa County, the election-related stuff? The Archie or...
VPNs?
Oh my God, what's the tool that gives them access?
The Albert sensors?
The Albert sensors.
That's it.
So,
I was going to ask Chris, but he's not in the studio, so.
Right. So, as a member of CIS runs the Albert sensors, right? And then he's also part and parcel of this big censorship operation. In fact, I saw an email he had written to somebody recently where they're having a cheap conversation in this email. And he's recommending, he is so high up there. Well, he's a high-level, mid-level player in this entire Russia scam, right? And so his recommendations were that they put CISA in the Department of Homeland Security. Do you know why? Instead of the defense, or instead of the DNI, the Defense National Intelligence Agency, he wanted it in CISA because of CISA's proximity to the social media companies, right? That and DNI was kind of like, ooh, we don't know if we want that creepy CISA organization in our group.
Remember, Brian De Valance, he was in Department of Justice. So he wanted it in an area he could control. So under Janet Napolitano, but not only that, he served on the House and Senate oversight committees during the same time as Suzanne Spalding. Right.
And he knows Susan Spalding. And so, you have all of these connections. This is a cabal. This is a conspiracy. It's a big cabal. And that's what States United is about. And if you look at everybody at States United, Stephen Richer is part of States United. Stephen Richer, there are so many ties that he has to all of this national security state stuff in the entire scam, right? He comes from a Chicago-based big multinational law firm where a partner works with Susan Spalding. He's in and out this revolving door of the national security agencies and his law firm. And sure enough, whoa, where does Stephen Richer come from? That damn law firm, right? And then he comes and he joins States United.
Yeah, Steptoe and Johnson.
So then he comes here and he joins with States United. And these guys have this huge scam to completely destroy Kerry Lake, right? so that they can get the three people they need elected in 2022. They need the governor because the governor, appoints members of the judicial branch of government. They need the Secretary of State because they run the elections statewide, and they need the AG because it's the AG who has the power to politically persecute your enemies or to investigate the election fraud that's been taking place, right? And then all three of them combined draft the elections procedures manual. So we need Tulsi Gabbard. Look at all of these people as they pertain to Arizona and CISA and States United, which is basically running the executive branch of Arizona's government right now. And look at Brian DeValance, figure out how he's tied to this entire scam and how they brought this scam of a disinformation task force and their censorship operations to the Arizona judicial branch of government. And that's what Tulsi Gabbard should be doing. That's what Pam Bondi should be doing every day. And, President Trump, Arizona needs your help significantly. We need your help very, very badly because they're scamming the registration system. They're scamming the early ballot system. And, we got the most, I think 2026 for America is the most important election, even more so than 2024.
I think you could be right. They're very focused on top level or upper middle management of the corruption, and honestly, they need to get some good eyes and ear working on lower level stuff like what we're talking about right now within the states, hiding in the states, because honestly, that's what's undermining liberty in this country is the corruption at the local levels.
And they could look at ties. Look at Stephen Richards' wife, the assistant U.S. attorney in charge of election violence cases. Right? How convenient is that? I mean, that should be a conflict of interest. She should have never been put on those cases because of her husband's roles and ties to States United and Arizona elections. Right? But she's using her personal email in Richards' calendar. And then you have Rachel Mitchell, the chief law enforcement officer in the county of Maricopa, using her personal email in Richard's calendar in this coordinated effort with States United to destroy Kari Lake and to ensure that Abe Hamadeh and Kari Lake lost their respective elections. And so, this is something that's a violation of the United States Constitution's equal protection and due process of law clauses, and they have every right and they have a duty to investigate to help protect the people of the state of Arizona from what has been happening in the corruption in government going on here.
Well, and I want to point out, Brian, because I don't know that you did, so just in case you didn't, Brian DeValance is a Arizona boy. He went to college here at ASU. He worked here in Arizona, not just under Governor Janet Napolitano, but he's been embedded and worked in other areas in the state of Arizona prior to going up federally. A lot of the cores of this corruption starts in Arizona. There's a
100%.
network built out of here.
Start with John McCain pushing this Russian bullshit during the fucking primary in 2015
absolutely.
and 2016.
So Arizona, it's not a secret. Arizona is a test market for different drinks, right? Manufacturers of drinks, they bring
cars too. They test cars
drinks here to see how they do on the market here before they start mass producing them for other states, because we're a thirsty state. It's hot, right? Okay. I think it's like that for the corruption too, right? So they take good candidates, they bring them to Arizona to see how corrupt they can really be, how fast they learn, and how many morals they can leave behind before they move them out somewhere else to put them to good use, right?
It's not funny, but it seems like Arizona is across the board like that. They test drinks, they test cars. They test corruption.
Yeah.
They're very similar in their sports teams too. They bring in players, and as soon as they find out they're good, they trade them off.
Right. Well, and this is what's funny, and this is what, I thank Kim. There are a lot of people out there. You guys, Arizona Pink Lady, Desert Rose, Arizona, or AZ Desert Rose. A lot of people out there have been doing a lot of really good work and finding a lot of good documents. And I don't even know all of these people, right? But what are they showing? They're showing that Susan Spalding had her team study every jurisdiction in the United States of America and everything about their election. Why would the National Security Agent, someone formally with the CIA, someone deeply embedded with the leftists in the Democratic Party in the national security state, why would they do that? Why would the National Security State do that? How convenient then every jurisdiction in 2020, every swing jurisdiction in 2020, right? They did slightly different things based on the type of election they had. And that's why, I wasn't joking when I talked about Runbeck being a private corporation and never having to show its loading dock video for 2020. Why in the hell has the National Security, or the Department of Justice, not come out here and served a subpoena on Runbeck and said, we want all of your records? Why? I am at a loss for words, because we've been talking about this issue for years. And I think, I don't know, is Kash Patel the right man for the job? Well, I've heard some things about him. I don't know. Is Dan Bongino? I don't know. I mean, is Pam Bondi? I don't know. It's frustrating that we've been talking about this stuff. We have been risking everything we are and everything we have doing what we're doing. And where the hell are they? They're just going to leave us in Arizona.
years.
Well,
Thousands of Americans have been risking everything to expose this stuff. And we just need someone in a position of power that can make shit happen to actually make the shit happen for once.
Yeah.
I think that's what's hiding just under the surface is a frustration that we don't see anyone going to jail for serious crimes that we've all been watching happen for years. For years.
Well, and it's not about necessarily people going to jail. How about, the DOJ goes and gets Runbeck's loading dock video from the day after the election in 2020, and they simply play it so that everybody can see it. But unlike the Jeffrey Epstein prison video, right? Oh, we were missing 15 minutes or whatever, however long it took them to unload a truck. PBS is PBS still broadcasting? If they are, they could put it on PBS and then people could watch it and they could see for themselves. And then we could identify whether or not Brian and you guys have been full of shit this whole time, right?
Yeah.
And that's it, Brian. And I've said this over and over, and we can't say it enough. If there is nothing to hide and you truly want to instill public confidence back in the elections, play the damn tape. Show us the videos. What are you hiding? Right?
Seriously, if we're all just crazy and living in a delusion this whole time, wouldn't it just be that simple to just put it all to bed, to just end it all, to just shut us all up?
It's funny. Rachel Alexander had a media friend guy, and he wanted to go do some photography and interview me and do this stuff. So we went out one night and did some photography and put a little mic on me, and we did an interview. And he's kind of acting like, we're all a bunch of crackheads. And he was going to do this movie, this documentary, I guess, on just how crackheadish we all are and how stupid we all are, because we're running down these allegations of election fraud and corruption in our government. And well, where the hell is he now? Why didn't he make a movie now that the truth and the reality of everything we have been saying is coming out? And it's going to there's going to be more that comes out. It's just going to get worse. It's going to get worse.
Where's the producer
for a lot
that
of people.
wants to make the documentary titled "Holy Crap, the Crackheads Were Right"?
Right. Oh, damn.
We'll make our
Wow.
own for a low
Right.
price of $1.99.
Oh,
We'll
gosh.
give it to-
No, we're doing it. We're doing it now for free.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, Stephen Richer and his wife and their ties to all of these people that are tied to Susan Spalding and these organizations tied directly to Susan Spalding. It's easy to look at these relationships and see, who really is Stephen Richer, because you have a lot of stuff that's starting to disappear off the internet, right?
Brian,
And
turn your phone
it's kind
sideways.
of funny.
There you go.
It is sideways. Man, you're a crackhead. I'm sorry. But
Well, your
there's a
video
lot
flipped
of
for a
stuff-
moment.
There's a lot of stuff that's disappearing off the internet, including going into the Wayback Machine, right?
Yeah,
A lot of
I've
these
seen that.
groups are starting to scrub shit, and
Mhm.
that sort of reminds me of Stephen Richer, because you go back and look for Stephen Richer's tweets or comments about Adrian Fontes, during the 2022 2020 election, 2022 election, right?
It was following the
they're gone.
2018 election. And you can barely
Yeah, they're
find that
gone.
report anywhere. The links broke like almost everywhere. We
Right.
still have it, but they've taken it down in
Yeah.
like 90% of the places.
Right, and so they're going through and I've said this before. It's like Stephen Richer has somebody at the NSA that carries this little Stephen Richer pooper scooper, and so they just go back and they remove stuff for him. I don't know. Does he do it himself? It's his hobby.
Well, I
guess.
remember back when Stephen Richer was
probably
running
stuff
for
on the
office, he had nothing good to say about Adrian Fontes. He basically called him
Absolutely
a
not.
criminal. And then as soon as he got into office, like, I don't know, within a month, a week, they were holding hands and skipping through the meadow of flowers together. Like he wasted no
They were
time
doing.
just becoming best
Yeah, and
buddies
he
with Adrian Fontes.
He wasted no time teaming up with States United. He wasted no time. I mean, look at it. The 2022 election, right? We've seen the calendar, the States United stuff. States United is running these meetings. Why is the Adrian Fontes campaign, right, for Secretary of State, and why is the Katie Hobbs for governor campaign included in these election strategy meetings with the Secretary of State's office and the county recorder's office, the two most important offices in Arizona elections? If that isn't corruption, I don't know what is. And Rachel Mitchell will do nothing about it because she was part of it.
Yep.
Right?
100%.
And so that's why we need the Department of Justice to go out there and protect Steve Shelby and every other Arizona resident's due process and equal protection rights under the United States Constitution. Maybe what the Trump administration should do is send in federal forces and put the state of Arizona under a consent decree, kind of like the one Maricopa County Recorder's under, and then or the Maricopa County Sheriff's Department's under, and then I'll be the supervisor.
You're hired.
Right?
If I have a say so, you're
Right,
hired,
and-
Brian.
I
It's
imagine
a
you'll
whole
charge
state,
less than
though.
$250,000 a month, right?
No, it's going to be $1 million because it's a whole state versus a county.
Hey, real quick before we wrap up, Steve, Can you put back up for me number 4? Is number 4 available still?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Was that the one with a sentence missing
No.
on the end? Okay. Number 4 starts with great.
I hope so. Okay. So I want to read this again before we give our final thoughts. And I'm going to do this in conjunction with the call out Brian made, and that is Department of Justice, Trump administration, President Trump, anybody who's taking any of this seriously. They told you what they were doing. And it says right here, I don't know, some dark forces like the FBI, for instance, or better yet, Clinton sympathizers in IC, Pentagon, Deep State, about American websites deploying a campaign to demonize the actions of Russia. This is the campaign people themselves telling you like it is. You can take it down now.
Right.
Do you think
This was-
that Brian De Valance, Suzanne Spalding, all these people were part of that?
100%. And I've been saying for a long time, a lot of people attribute most of this to Barack Obama. But most of this, I believe, emanates from all of these Hillary Clinton loyalists, right? She was part of the Secretary of State Department, which works very closely with the CIA and the NSA and all of these other institutions. These were Hillary Clinton loyalists working with the civilians on the outside of the system to totally fuck constitutional republicanism in the United States forever, right? They wanted to put us under a system where the experts governed, and the people who told the experts what to do were Hillary Clinton and her minions. And that's what a lot of this is. I've been saying that for a long time. So, you know.
You got any final thoughts there, Steve?
No, I agree. It's this house of cards needs to fall. If
I know. It's like,
if Trump is going to be effective, truly, at draining the swamp, which was his stated goal the first time and even the second time, then he needs to unleash the dogs.
Yep.
He needs to let principled people who are incentivized to find the truth, root it out, and start cleaning this up. And just as much as he wants to focus on the top layers of this nasty cake of corruption, he needs to freaking start getting people in the states to look at all the lower level stuff, because that's how America is being undermined, as on the local level.
Well, I think it bleeds up and down, right? I mean,
Yeah. But
that's why they have U.S. attorneys' offices in every state. Some more than one, right?
You can kill an
problem,
entire
though,
tree by poisoning the roots, and that's what
no doubt.
that's what this deep state is doing. Is they're poisoning the roots of liberty.
No.
Well, with that
And now
being
they're
said, I
hiding
want to
in
just
Arizona.
I want to add one more thing. It's not an exact quote because I can't find it in here, but there was a statement made in the Durham Annex. And again, if you haven't read it, it's well worth the read. It is 29 pages long. You won't regret a minute of it. But
Hey,
they
we should
talk
post it
about
on the website.
Yeah, we can. I'll get it up on the website tonight. They talk about the fact that there were people in the agencies that were refusing to cooperate in the investigations because they were fearful of Hillary Clinton. It's actually in the report that they were afraid to speak out or to actually investigate anything out of fear that she would become the president, and they were afraid of her.
Well,
So
Well, maybe the ghost of Seth Rich had a visit with them, right?
yeah.
Yeah, who
So,
knows?
or any of the other hundreds of people who have died.
Obviously, the Clinton machine was something to be fearful of. Otherwise, Obama wouldn't have set up that operation to bribe her so that he could control her. That
Yeah.
was, the whole Patrick Byrne thing where he put out what he was put out to do, and
Yeah.
So
All right,
the
all right, Sam.
Obamas were trying to control her because they thought she was going to get into office, and they fear her too.
Yeah, I've got to take off. I got to get my puppy to dinner. We
thanks
haven't
for
had dinner
joining us
yet.
tonight. And I guess with that said, we're out tonight. Thank you, guys.
Peace.
Take care and be
Peace.
safe, Brian.
Oh, I will. That wouldn't be any fun.
Any last closing thoughts, Shelby, while I get this ready to shut down?
No, it's just, if you've been watching us over the last several months, then you know that the things that we've been saying are finally coming out in mainstream media. Don't ever believe that the whole truth is out. And no matter how crazy something sounds, dig into it. If you have information, if you want to bring stuff forward on our show, reach out to us, we the people, az@protonmail.com. We'd love to hear what you're finding. We'd love to share anything that you're investigating. So reach out, and hopefully we'll have you on our show. So with
Also,
that,
Brian, you can reach out to Brian Blemlaw, AZ. What is it?
yeah, it's at Blim Law AZ.
Yeah. All right. Peace, guys.